Hey friends, Justin here, and today I'm going over some really cool gear that I've picked up for a long distance through hike that I'm going to be completing this summer. I've alluded to this a little bit before, but I guess this is the official announcement. I'm going to be hiking the 1100 kilometer continuation of the Continental Divide Trail, the Great Divide Trail, or GDT. The 8 pieces of gear that I talk about in this video are new pieces of gear for me that I picked up for the GDT, but I think are going to be game changers for not only the GDT, but my backpacking trips in general. If you plan on going on a through hike or a long backpacking trip, or you want to lower the base weight of your pack so that you're more comfortable on the trail, or you just want to see some really cool gear and gear technology, then this video is for you. The first piece of gear is a new quilt from Enlightened Equipment. So this is an Enlightened Equipment Enigma 20. And it's made with a 7 denier shell fabric, which is the lightest shell fabric I found from any quilt manufacturer at 0.5 ounces per yard. And the down inside of it is 950 power fill down, which is really ultralight as well. This quilt's the regular width, and I find the regular width is actually pretty good for me. I sometimes sleep with a wide quilt, which has a little bit more fabric to it, but also weighs a little bit more. If you watch some of my other videos, then you know that I have another Enigma 20 quilt, and you might be asking why I got a second one. And it's really the weight savings. That's what this is all about. With the 7 denier shell fabric, the 950 power filled down, and the regular width versus the wide width, I actually shaved quite a bit of weight off of my quilt setup for the GDT and other backpacking trips where I want to go really ultralight. Next up is a powdered soap by Pika Outdoors. I've never come across a powdered soap before, so this is a really cool product. It might not legally be a soap based on FDA regulations, but once you add water to it, based on my research, it might then become legally a soap. But either way, it does have a surfactant in the ingredients list, which is going to be effective at getting things off of your hands and body that you don't want on them. There's several things that I really like about this soap. First of all, it's biodegradable. It's also pH neutral. And with it being in powdered form, it doesn't freeze. And I've been on the receiving end of frozen soap in the wintertime, and it's just not what you want, especially after going number 2 in the backcountry. As well, the powdered soap is quite a bit lighter than liquid soap, coming in at about 1/4 of the weight. And I usually keep the soap, the powdered soap, in these little containers here. I can just open it up, put some into my hands, add some water, and then wash my hands just like I would with regular liquid soap. If you're interested in this soap or any gear that I talk about in this video, I'll post links in the video description. You can get to the video description by clicking the show more button if you're on your computer, or the little arrow next to the video title if you're on your phone. Next up is a Toaks 650 milliliter titanium pot. And this pot is in Toaks Light line, which means that it uses a thinner titanium at 0.3 millimeters compared to their standard pots, which use a thicker titanium. This is one of the lightest, if not the lightest pots on the market that can still fit a small canister of fuel, as well as a stove and a lighter. I'm only gonna be boiling water on the GDT, so this is the perfect size, and you can't beat that weight. This is probably now the fanciest piece of gear that I own, and it's the Z-Packs Ultiplex tent. This thing is crazy light at 437 grams, but also crazy expensive. And the reason for that price tag is that it's made with a really cool fabric, Dyneema composite fabric, or DCF. And there's really nothing that comes close to DCF if you're looking to make a really ultralight tent. In addition to the weight, another bonus of DCF is that it doesn't absorb water. So if you're camping at a campsite that has a lot of condensation at it, or if it rains, then you're not gonna be carrying around that water weight once you pack your tent up and you're going on your hike. This is an expensive piece of gear, and I went back and forth trying to decide if it's worth it for me, and I ultimately decided that it is. A tent is a big part of your base weight, and being able to drop a lot of weight from my tent really lightened my load, and that's gonna make a big difference mile after mile when I'm on the GDT. A benefit for you guys with some of this more expensive gear that I'm trying out is that I'm gonna be putting it through its paces and then comparing it to some of the more budget-friendly options out there. For example, I'll probably be comparing the Ultiplex to the 3F UL Lanshan 1 Pro trekking pole tent. It's a one-person tent as well. And I really want to be comparing these more expensive products side by side with the budget options so that you guys can decide whether it's worth dropping the extra cash on the more expensive products. Next up are toothpaste tabs. So these are just little pills that you can use to replace a tube of toothpaste. And they're really awesome and much lighter than a tube of toothpaste. Related to weight, they make planning your toothpaste needs for a trip much easier. If you're going on an overnighter, you can just bring 1 or 2 of these and you're all set. You don't need to bring that whole big tube of toothpaste. And for me, on a through hike of the Great Divide Trail, I'm gonna be able to put exactly how many I need into the resupply boxes that I'm gonna be picking up in the towns that I'm gonna be passing through every 6 to 8 days. It comes in 2 different versions, one with fluoride and one without fluoride. It's actually pretty hard to find toothpaste tabs with fluoride if that's something that you're looking for. In order to use them, you just take one, put it in your mouth, chew it up, brush your teeth, and then you're all set. Next up is another Enlightened Equipment product, and this is the Torrid Jacket. So this is a synthetic, full zip, hooded jacket made with synthetic materials. So this would be a jacket that you'd use instead of bringing a down jacket to wear to stay warm around camp. But because it's made with synthetic material, it does a lot better in keeping you warm if you're in a really humid or moist environment. Everything I hear about this jacket says that it's a very warm jacket, especially for its weight. And I'm really looking forward to use it on the Great Divide Trail, which can often be really cold and sometimes really wet. Another piece of gear that I upgraded this year was my watch. So I upgraded to the Garmin Fenix 6 Pro Solar. There's some really cool new features with the 6 Pro Solar, but what I'm mostly interested in is that solar feature that it has. I use my Garmin Fenix watch for navigation quite a bit when in the backcountry. I can upload a route onto the watch and then overlay that route over a colored topo map. And that map will be showing other trails as well as the topography of the land, which is super useful when in the backcountry. There's some interesting spots on the Great Divide Trail, so I think this watch is going to be essential for navigating those tricky trails, as well as in some spots there's no trail at all, and when I'm on those parts, this watch is going to be super useful. With the navigation requirements for a lot of the places I backpack and on the Great Divide Trail, this watch is a must-have for me, and hopefully the solar version means I don't have to charge the watch quite as much. This next item is something that's new to market, and it's a trekking pole made by Cascade Mountain Tech, and they're the famed Costco trekking pole manufacturer, but this is a different model. It's much, much lighter and achieves the lighter weight by being fairly basic. It's basically just a 2-section carbon fiber pole that also has an EVA handle, and that's really all you need in a trekking pole, and it makes it much lighter. The one I have here weighs 137 grams without the straps. I just take the straps off because it makes it easier when I'm filming. I actually don't recommend taking the straps off because they do help a lot when you're using the trekking pole. It's not quite long enough to be used on its own with my Ultiplex. The Ultiplex requires, I think it's a 46-inch pole in order to prop it up, but you can get this carbon fiber pole jack from Z-Packs, who makes the Ultiplex, and you just put that into the bottom of the trekking pole and you're able to get the extra height that you need to set the tent up. I'm really excited for these trekking poles as they're one of the lightest trekking poles on the market now, and that may not seem like a big deal, but over the course of an entire day and day after day of lots of kilometers, that really does start to add up. They're also fairly inexpensive at only $100. If you're curious about what some of my other gear might look like for the GDT through hike, I'll post a link right up there to my 2020 ultralight gear list. There are probably going to be some pieces of gear that I take from that list and incorporate into the gear that I talked about today. I will at some point do a full loadout of my GDT gear list, as well as doing some videos on my training in order to avoid injuries when I'm out on the trail, and some of the meal prep that I'm doing for multi-day trips. I'll also be filming the GDT, and I'm really looking forward to taking you guys on that trip with me. Thanks guys, and we'll see you next time.